The sun beat down relentless over Dusthaven. The air wavered above the wooden fences, and the scent of dust and straw stuck to everything. That was when Elias Kane pinned Lila Carver against the barn wall. His shadow darkened her face. "So, you want this," he growled, his grip tight on her wrist. She pushed him off, dirt kicking up from the ground, her voice slicing through the heat. "Lay a hand on me again, and I'll tell the sheriff what you did by the creek, the forged land claims, the man you hushed for good." The world froze. Then fury flashed across Elias's face. He struck her once, hard, enough to send her stumbling into the glare. The sound spooked the horses. "You talk too much," he said. "Let's see you talk under the water." He called for his lone hired hand, Jonah. The young tanner stepped from the shade, rope in hand, eyes uncertain. "Tie her up," Elias ordered. "Take her to the Redstone River." Jonah faltered. "Boss, it's broad daylight. Someone might spot us." "Then ride faster," Elias barked. The trail to the river scorched under the sun. Lila's wrists chafed bloody against the rope. Her breath came quick and hot. Jonah rode behind, silent, his hat low. When they reached the riverbank, the water's shine was blinding. The current curled around the rocks, slow and deep. Jonah dismounted first, sweat streaking his face. He looked at her. "I'm sorry," he whispered. She held his gaze. "You can still fix this." His hand trembled as he stared. He thought of his sister, and something in him cracked. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Jonah sliced the rope, quick, almost fierce. "Run west. Don't stop till you're safe." She ran. The heat blurred the world, thorns snagged her dress, her lungs burned. When she collapsed, it was under a sycamore tree shaking in the hot breeze. Her hands were raw, lips dry and split. The light stung her eyes. Hoofbeats echoed closer. A horse snorted. Amos Creed reined in beside her, sweat staining his shirt. The old rancher's eyes narrowed. He saw the rope marks, the blood on her ribs, the dust caked on her skin. He knelt, cut the last of the rope, and lifted her chin gently. "Please, don't be harsh," she whispered. He paused, then pressed a clean rag to her wound, steady and careful. "Who did this?" he asked. "Elias Kane," she murmured. The name hit him like a stone. He'd heard it before, the judge's son, the untouchable crook. Amos looked to the horizon, where the sun baked the land in gold. Somewhere out there a devil wore a grin. Had saving her pulled him back into the trouble he'd dodged for a decade? Or had fate decided his quiet days were done? By the time they reached Amos Creed's ranch, the sun had painted the hills rust red. The old windmill groaned, the horses stirred, and dust trailed them through the gate. Lila was barely conscious. Her voice broke when she spoke. "Why'd you help me?" Amos gave a small nod. "Guess I still know what good folks ought to do." He carried her inside, set her on a cot by the window, and poured water into a tin cup. She drank slowly, eyes half shut. "You got lucky. Another hour out there, the heat would have claimed you." Her wrists were raw. He cleaned them with cheap whiskey, gentle and quiet. When she winced, he stopped. "You're safe here. No one's touching you." She glanced around. The room was plain, worn by years of hard living. A rifle rested in the corner, a saddle hung by the door. Dust glowed gold in the sunlight. "You live out here alone?" she asked. "Most days," he said. "Keeps the chaos out." For a while there was just the hum of wind through the screen door. Then Lila sat up straighter. "Elias Kane tried to hurt me because I found proof. He's been faking land claims along the creek, stealing water from small ranches. There's a ledger in his office tying him to a dead surveyor." Amos's jaw tightened. That name carries weight. His father runs half the county court. "That's why I can't go to the sheriff. They'd hand me right back to him." He poured her more water and stared out the window. The land stretched wide, the air still heavy with heat. He'd spent 10 years dodging trouble, but trouble had found his doorstep again. That night, the sky burned red as the sun sank behind the ridge. Amos sat on the porch, cleaning his old rifle, though he swore he was done with guns. Inside, Leela slept restlessly, the wind tangling her dreams. At dawn, she woke to coffee and the smell of bacon. Amos handed her a plate without a word. "Eat. You'll need your strength." She smiled faintly. "You don't say much, do you?" "Talk wastes breath. Work saves lives," he said, half grinning. But behind the quiet, Amos's mind churned. He knew a man like Elias Cain wouldn't quit after failing once. He'd come harder next time. And somewhere out there in town, Elias was already stirring. He'd learned Lila Carter was still alive, and the man who spared her was about to face the hardest choice of his life. Would mercy hold when vengeance came knocking? Elias Cain wasn't the type to forget a slight. When word reached him that Lila was still breathing, his temper flared like wildfire in his father's courthouse office. He slammed his fist on the desk. "That rancher's hiding her, and you're gonna fix it." Jonah Tanner stood in the doorway, hat in hand, his gut twisting. "Boss, she's got nothing left to say. Maybe let it go." Elias leaned close, whiskey sharp on his breath. "You'll go to that ranch. You'll finish what you started. Or you won't be breathing either." By sunset, Jonah rode toward the Ironwood Plains. The light glowed gold over the hills. Dust trailed him like smoke. At Amos's ranch, the day had been calm. Leela helped feed the horses, her wrists still bandaged, her voice steadier. Then she saw a lone rider on the trail. Her chest tightened. Amos stepped onto the porch, hand near the rifle. But when the rider drew near, Leela whispered, "Wait, I know him." Jonah stopped a few yards off, face drawn, eyes heavy with more than guilt. "I didn't come to hurt you," he said softly, "but I need to talk." Amos didn't lower the rifle, but he didn't raise it either. "You've got 1 minute." Jonah looked at Leela. "Elias sent me. He wants you gone for good. I'm supposed to make it happen." The wind went still. Even the horses froze. Leela stepped forward. "Then why are you here talking instead of shooting?" Jonah let out a heavy breath. "Couldn't do it the first time. My sister lost her land to his fake claims last year. I'm done being his pawn." Something sparked between them. Maybe trust, maybe something deeper. Neither dared name it. Amos saw it too. He gave Jonah a long look, then pointed to the barn. "If you're staying, you work. You sleep there. No trouble." Jonah nodded. "That'll do." As night fell, the three ate in silence. Coyotes howled across the plains. Inside, the air was thick with unspoken things. Leela caught Jonah watching her once, a faint smile on his face. For the first time in days, she didn't feel hunted. Jonah handed her a piece of jerky from his pocket. "Ain't much, but it's something." She smiled. After all this, anything shared is enough. Somewhere between fear and silence, Hope took a shaky breath. Far off, under the same moon, Elias Cain gathered 3 men and loaded his gun. Tomorrow, he'd finish what he started, and the past Amos Creed had buried for 10 long years was about to ride straight to his door. So, what do you reckon happens when vengeance meets redemption on that dusty plain? If you're following this tale, take a sip of your coffee. Tell me what time it is where you're at and where you're tuning in from. And if this story's got you hooked, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next chapter. The next morning was too quiet for ranch country. The sky hung low and pale, the kind of day that hushed the birds. Amos Creed knew the stillness was wrong. He stood on the porch, coffee in hand, eyes scanning the empty trail. In the barn, Jonah was mending a harness. Leela brushed a horse, humming softly. For a brief moment, it almost felt like peace. At dawn, Amos found hoofprints near the north fence. Fresh, too many for a lone rider. He didn't say a word, but his jaw tightened. Trouble was coming. Then his dog started barking, the sound rolling down the valley like thunder. 4 riders crested the ridge. Elias Cain led them, black hat low, gun glinting in the sun. Beside him rode Cal Tucker, an older hand who'd once run with bandits in the north. Amos's coffee cup hit the rail. He stepped off the porch and called to the barn. "Jonah, Trouble's here." Jonah came running, rifle in hand. Leela's face paled when she saw the riders closing in. Elias stopped just outside the fence, smirking like he'd already won. "Morning, Creed. You've got something that's mine." Amos didn't budge. "You mean the woman you tried to drown?" Elias's smirk twitched. "You don't know who you're messing with, old man." From behind him, Cal Tucker shifted in his saddle, squinting at Amos. Then his voice came rough and low. "Hell's bells, I know that man. That's Iron Creed." The words landed like a gunshot. Even Elias's men froze. Amos met Cal's stare, steady and cold. "You still owe me for Redstone. Don't make it worse." Cal's hands shook. He turned to Elias. Elias fired in a panic, the shot grazing Amos's arm, tearing his sleeve. Amos didn't flinch. He raised his rifle, fired once, and sent Elias's gun spinning into the dirt. Cal's voice cracked. "Iron Creed! You buried 6 men in Redstone. I was there." Amos's voice was calm as stone. 7. Ride out now or we go again." Elias cursed, but Cal was already backing his horse away. The others too hesitated, and that was enough. Jonah lunged, tackling one rider, and the others scattered. When the dust settled, Elias was on his knees, blood dripping from his arm, his pride shattered. Amos bound his hands with the same rope Elias had used on Leela. "Guess it's your turn to answer questions," he said quietly. Leela stepped from behind the fence, eyes bright with fear and relief. It was over, or so it seemed. Amos looked to the horizon, knowing it wasn't, because men like Elias never fell without pulling others down. And in town, the courthouse doors were about to swing wide, waiting for one last reckoning. Will Amos march his prisoner into town and lay the truth bare? Or will the law that once broke him come calling again? The sun climbed high over Dusthaven as Amos Creed, Leela Carver, and Jonah Kainer rode into town. Dust swirled around their horses. Folks stepped aside when they saw who rode in the middle, Elias Kane, hands tied, face dark with fury. By the time they reached town, word had spread. A sheriff's horse waited outside the courthouse steps. The courthouse doors opened. Inside, Judge Harlan Kane sat, feigning shock at his son in chains. The room went quiet as Amos spoke. This man tried to kill her. Forged land claims. Stole water from ranchers with nothing left. Leela held up a battered ledger, pages worn and stained. "This is his writing. Every fake sale, every name, including the surveyor who disappeared." Whispers filled the room. The judge tried to stand, but his voice broke. "Get these lies out of my court." The night before the trial, Amos had sent a telegram to an old friend in the Marshal Service. He didn't trust local law, but he trusted one man in Washington to read the signs. Then a marshal stepped forward, papers in hand. "Not your court anymore. Judge Washington's got questions of its own." The clink of his badge echoed louder than any shot. For the first time, the Kane name meant nothing. By evening, father and son were taken away. Folks gathered outside, watching. Some cheered, others stared, wondering how long fear had kept them quiet. Amos leaned against his horse, the light catching the lines on his face. He looked at Jonah and Leela, standing side by side. Jonah reached for her hand, tentative, like asking for a new start. She smiled and held on. When the summer rains ended and the grass grew green, they married under that same sycamore tree. It wasn't grand, just a preacher from town, a few friends, and the breeze carrying the scent of fresh rain. Amos stood at the crowd's edge, hat in hand, a small smile breaking through years of silence. When the preacher called for a witness, Amos stepped up. He looked at them and said, "Life gives you chances to mend what's broken. Don't waste 'em." Before dawn the next day, Amos saddled his horse and rode east. He left the porch lantern burning, just in case another lost soul needed shelter. Everyone chuckled softly, but his words lingered. As the stars rose over the Redstone River, Amos sat alone on the porch. He'd spent half his life running from ghosts, and the other half making peace with them. Maybe this was what redemption looked like. Not loud, not grand, just right. So maybe that's the lesson in the dust and heat of this story. Every soul, no matter their past, can choose to do one good thing before the sun sets. What about you? If you had a shot to make something right today, would you take it? If this tale stirred something in you, tap that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next ride. Now, take a slow sip of your coffee. Tell me what time it is, where you're at, and where you're tuning in from. Because sometimes the best stories remind us we're all still trying to do a little good before the night falls.